Hey, everybody. Do you remember when you were in grade school and you got the chance to read your very first chapter book? How excited you were and what a big deal it was? Well, I don't remember, but my grandchildren do. And I remember the first day that Hannah came running in and said, Grammy, I have a chapter book to read. Well, that's what we're going to look at today, are chapter books, but they're for the young adult and not just the third or fourth grader. But I have three chapter books I chose for these reviews, and I liked all three of them, but it'd be very difficult to say one is better than the other. One to me was funnier than the other. Let me show you what we're going to talk about today. The first one is Ferret in the Bedroom, Lizards in the Fridge. This is a hilarious book. Now, this book runs about $9 on Amazon, and there's lots of used copies available much cheaper than that. Again, I encourage you to go to your library and check them out. He's written many, many books similar to this, and your kids would love it. One of his books is Snot Stew, and I can't wait to read that to see what Snot Stew really is all about. I hope it's not snot. The next one I've chosen is Elvis and Ollie. And this book is written by Stephanie Watson, and it's $15.99. And it's got 230 pages, which is the longest book on this review. And the last one is, let's try it this way. My Summer of the Lions. My Summer of the Lions. Very funny. So, and let me see, Summer of the Lions is, again, $15, and it's set in Australia, so this $15 might be Australian dollars and not American dollars. So let's start with my favorite one for books about talking lions. Whoops, can you see it? My Summer of the Lions. In this book, Marty, a young boy who's lost his mother to cancer about a year ago, is still struggling with her death. And he doesn't quite know how to deal with it. So he turns to some behavior that is not only illegal, but results in some serious consequences. His father is still grieving and kind of zonked out and not really aware of what's going on in Marty's life. So they've kind of gone their different ways, staying within the same house. Well, Marty has a good friend named Sam, and he and Sam are hired by a kind of scoundrelly character to steal hubcaps. But that evolves into something much more serious. It results in a serious injury to both Sam, his best friend, and to Marty himself. The only thing that really carries him through this story, through this time period, this summer, is his conversations and his visits with his friends, the lions, Felix and Felicity. Felix and Felicity have a lot of advice and a lot of admonitions for Marty. So this is a good book. It is poignant, it's sad, but it also has a pretty decent happy ending. I was going to share some comments that came out of it, some quotes from the book. One of the first quotes I wrote down was at the very beginning of the book when Marty, who's writing, this is in first person, he's writing it in first person, and he says, it's not a fancy story. And it's not. It's a very straightforward, simple story. But it's a story that reveals the pain and suffering that a young man, a young teenager, a young tween could go through trying to deal with major issues like death and loss. Also, his father meets another woman and wants to remarry, and that's what really throws Marty into a downspin. There's some issues with relativity in here, whether something is wrong or too wrong to do. When they speed up their efforts from hubcaps to a higher level of theft, his best friend says, no, it's too wrong, as opposed to just stealing hubcaps. And finally, the last quote I thought that really shows the essence of this book was the last page, what's on the last page, and it was a quote that said, I'd like a happy ending, but it's not that easy. So I've decided, rather than worry about happy endings, I'm going to work on good beginnings. And I thought that was a great way to end this book, because you know that it's going to be better for Marty and his father and his father's new wife. these books are, this book is one I highly recommend to be read out loud, but also you could read it, your child could read it to himself or herself. But I found it was quite entertaining, yet heart-wrenching, poignant. A lot of good opportunities for discussion with your kids about what's too wrong and how to deal with anger that's expressed, um, an expression, how to deal with anger that's an expression of grief. Very good book. Let me go back to this book for a minute, or to all three of these books, as a matter of fact. These books all address issues that tweens and young teens probably have to deal with on a regular basis. Some of them are not so dramatic to us grown-ups who have really dealt with life-shattering issues, but to these children, to these young adults and teens, these are life-shattering issues. They're the issues that they focus on probably for 4 or 5, maybe even 6 or 7 years of their life, trying to deal with acceptance, loss, confusion, angst. Well, we'll see a couple more of these as I look at the book. The next book I have is Elvis and Ollie. And Elvis and Ollie is a mystery because we don't know what the heck Elvis is about. Who is she? Why is she so different from everybody else that Olive knows? This is a story of two girls who meet in the beginning of summer. Two girls that could not be more different from each other. Olive, who is Natalie. Olive, who is Natalie, is from a prim and proper home with a mother that stays at home and cooks like Betty Crocker, and a father who goes to work every day, and a brother who's a pest. Annie, we don't know about Annie, and that's the mystery of the book. But Annie is brave and spontaneous and a liar. And that's the crux of the problem, is that Annie is a liar. Well, they decide during this first meeting at Annie's initiative to start a spy club. And they become spies for the neighborhood. And part of the story is about what happens once they spy on other neighbors and the trouble that results from that. Because the first spy stories they get for each neighbor is not bad. They're true. They're true stories of what they've spied upon and seen neighbors do. Of course, they don't know any of the whys behind any of these actions, but that doesn't matter to them. But Elvis, who's Annie, Elvis says, hey, let's make up some more information about these people because these are boring, boring stories. Let's find some better things that they do as secrets. Well, that's when the real trouble starts because eventually people find out, that's part of the story, people find out about the secrets, and it causes a tremendous amount of chaos and grief and the loss of a friendship. But this book does have a happy ending, although you wonder how in the world it could. It's a fun book to read. I don't think it's a good read aloud book. I think it's a book that would be good for your child to read to himself or herself. And it's a book for both boys and girls. It's not just a girl's book. And finally, the last one I have here is, I said the first one was my favorite, but this is my favorite too. I always tell my ESL students you can't have two favorites, but I guess in real life you can have two favorites, or two almost favorites. Anyway, this book is a riot. And if you don't laugh when you're reading this book out loud to your child, something's wrong with you, because this is full of hilarious activity. This is Ferret in the bedroom, lizards in the fridge. This is a story about a little girl named Liz. And her friends at school, or maybe not her friends, but her fellow students call her Lizard because her father is a zoologist at the University of Oklahoma studying lizards. And he happens to bring lizards home. And they keep them on the porch. And sometimes the dead ones that he's studying, they keep in their refrigerator. They also have an ibex, I-B-E-X, an ibex, and an owl with a broken wing. And she has, instead of a dog, she has a pet ferret that lives in her house. And this pet ferret is frisky and conniving and very supportive of Liz and her woes of all these animals. She loves the animals, but nobody will come to her house because they're all afraid of the animals. Because, oh, they have they have two turtles that are really slow, and somebody's afraid they'll step on them. But anyway, um, in this book, Liz is running for student president of her class. And she really doesn't want to do it, but her best friend Sally convinces her to do it. And as a result, um, Liz finds out who her true friends are. This is a hilarious book. Um, in the end, it all comes back to the way it should be. But in the middle, it all falls apart because Liz is deciding to change her life and get rid of the animals. And it devastates her father, but he does it. What happens to the animals is the end of the story. Now, a little bit of housekeeping here. Nobody made any comments on my last video about board books, but I still have this book, Brown Bear, What Do You See? And I still think that it should be given away to whoever makes the best comments. So please, somebody make some kind of comment so that I can at least get rid of this book. Although I like this one, I could keep it for sure. Finally, I'm going to give away to anybody who makes a good comment, and I'm the judge of what a good comment is, the Summer of My Lions, or My Summer of the Lions. I think you'd enjoy it, and I think it's a good book to have in your library. Please come back next Friday. We're going to be doing appropriate reading for 3 to 5 year olds and what to look for in books for 3 to 5 year olds. We're going to talk about that and see if that'll help you make better choices than what's out there, randomly picking from what's out there. So y'all have a good night, get some good sleep, and wake up with a smile. As a famous person once said, present readers become future leaders. Let's make our children future leaders.